What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So today, Scalebound is actually back in the news somewhat as Platinum Games talked a bit about the game, the relationship with Microsoft, and kind of where they thought the blame, I guess, should have been. It's not necessarily how I think a lot of people were picturing it to be, with how that game kind of went away and everyone attacked Microsoft over it. Kind of interesting there. And then we have to take a look at some serious hints being dropped right now as something Square Enix actually being at the state of play, with a lot of people thinking it could have something to do with Final Fantasy VII Remake. Yeah, that actually might be showing up here kind of soon, which is exciting to think about. As always, guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure to hit the like button. It does help out. And get subscribed to keep up on gaming news. We do this every weekday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern time. And today we're going to start actually with EA Access, because it's finally been announced for the PlayStation 4. It's been with the Xbox One for, years now. $30 a year or $5 a month. And a lot of times they'll do things like put early access in for Anthem, just as an example, in their subscription service and everything. This is actually kind of neat because it's like their vault. So like Battlefront 2, for example, is in there. I think they have 50 games or so in there right now on the Xbox One. And the thing about this, though, that's a bit different for the PlayStation 4 that people will have to kind of pay attention to and realize is that PS3 games don't work on the PlayStation 4, like 360 games work on the Xbox One. So while things like Fight Night Champion might be on the Xbox One as an example, it won't be on the PlayStation 4 because it's not backwards compatible with PS3 games. So it's cool to see that happen, to see it show up. Sony didn't seem super interested in it over the past few years, but I guess the library has gotten large enough to where it makes sense. I mean, they put a lot of their sports games in there too, so if you're a big fan of like their, Madden and FIFA and stuff, even if you're a year behind, it's probably worth subscribing to that just to stay up to date on it. But I do know they put some of their newer ones in there as well, so you'll have to decide if EA's library is something you want to get into for a subscription service. We also had a bit more information about Devil May Cry on the Nintendo Switch. Now, of course, Capcom is bringing that one over. We talked about it yesterday. I wasn't sure about pricing. A little more information on the possibility of a cheaper price, maybe, where generally prices will get a little higher if you got to go to retail because of cart costs. Well, on their homepage for the Switch game, all the way at the bottom, they have a line of text that says this product is only available as a download. There are no plans to release a physical edition. So that could actually work in the favor of a cheaper game, as they would only make it digital and wouldn't have to worry about boxing up a copy and putting it on store shelves. I'm hoping it's 15, max 20. 20 is, I still think, kind of pushing it. If it's like $25, that's just too much, and Capcom would, I think, be just taking advantage of the situation. Hopefully it comes out and it's $14.99 straight up, and I think then people will really enjoy it at that price. Oh, and we finally got the official announcement for Nintendo's NES games for this month on the Switch. We talked about them already because Nintendo put them up as upcoming games on their NES page, their Nintendo application page, and they are coming this month. Same ones we talked about before, where it was Clue Land, that was one, versus Excitebike, and Donkey Kong Jr. They are all being available May 15th. And we also don't know about any random special edition, those SP editions that they do. They just kind of pop up out of nowhere most times, right? So at least you can look forward to those. Versus Excitebike was, of course, interesting because it's technically a Wii U Virtual Console game, kinda. That was how they localized it from the Famicom Disk System, and here it is now showing up there. Super Mario 2, of course, is another example, but that already had been localized to the US prior in Super Mario All-Stars. So hey, you never know, we could see some other stuff like maybe Earthbound Beginnings, which was also localized by coming to the Wii U. Oh, and just for fun, Sega actually trademarked a Super Monkey Ball trademark. Oh yes, I know, it's really exciting to think about that Super Monkey Ball could be making some sort of return. I think it makes a ton of sense, by the way, on the Switch. This is actually the trademark that they filed. It is Tabagoro Super Monkey Ball, and that's in Japan currently, which is making people wonder if a Super Monkey Ball game would be in development. However, what I think is happening here, and if there is one in development, I think it's for cell phones, and I don't think people want to hear that, but Sega, of course, would be looking into the cell phone market where there is a lot of money to make, and they are currently looking for ways to make a lot of money, considering their last fiscal report wasn't great. So, of course, doubling down on the cell phone efforts would make sense alongside a lot of their console stuff that they're doing in their service-based stuff, and even their little Genesis Mini. So I unfortunately think it's a cell phone game, but I would love to be wrong and see it actually be a full-fledged Super Monkey Ball game on the Switch, but there's a trademark floating around out there, so you never know. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff, and we're actually gonna start with a reason for one of those keyboards that I showed you before in a video where we took a look at Switch keyboards that would let you slide the Joy-Con controllers on. Of course, there aren't a lot of MMOs right now on the Switch. We have Warframe, of course, it's one that a lot of people play right now, but I'm thinking like fantasy MMORPG, something like Dragon Quest X or Phantasy Star Online 2. Both games are currently stuck in Japan right now, but it does look like there are some new efforts for a higher quality than some of there are some weird ones right now on the Switch that are like covered in microtransactions. They don't look great, but it looks like there is some work going into higher quality fantasy MMORPGs, and the latest one that appears to have been announced for the Switch, and it is alongside mobile counterparts, so Android and iOS, for example. And this one is actually called Project Eternal. They have a full trailer put out, and they have now confirmed that they are working towards a Nintendo Switch reveal for it, announcement, and release, looking for this fall, it looks like. That's from Asobimo, and yeah, it looks kind of like a mobile game, yes, but I do know, of course, there isn't a lot of these games on the Switch right now, really none that are higher quality, and if this is at least decent enough, it might actually find a market on the Switch just because there's not much else there. There just isn't. There's no Final Fantasy XIV, for example. There's no Black Desert Online. None of that is there right now. Now, we've heard that something like Final Fantasy XIV, they've looked into it, but it sounds like if there's no crossplay, they're not going to bother with it. And Sony, of course, would keep that blockade up because it keeps Final Fantasy XIV off of a competing system like the Switch. So that's just kind of the way it is with that game. But if you start seeing more Korean MMOs and MMOs based out of China kind of coming over and hitting the Switch, it necessarily wouldn't surprise me just because, of course, the Switch is starting to make its way in with Tencent and into China. So I wouldn't be shocked. It's going to more or less come down to if they want to bring it outside of the region that they're kind of introducing it to. Like, let's say it's only in Korea. Would it leave Korea and go other places? What if it's only in, it's only in China? Would it leave there? I mean, we're still waiting for Phantasy Star Online 2 to do anything outside of Japan at all. Like, we even had a website and everything in full English, but nothing. So at least this would, I guess, give us a reason, more or less, to have a keyboard outside of something like a Warframe or typing up a title in like the eShop or something, or typing in a name for a character. So we'll see, but it's at least interesting enough just to keep an eye on. Next up, let's talk about Platinum Games and Scalebound. Now, Scalebound has actually been in the news. Tons of rumors around a revival for this game for the Switch, which is super weird, right? That's an odd thing. I don't know what kind of backroom dealings would have had to have gone on for that to even be a possibility, but a couple places actually reported on it, and since then it's been pretty quiet. It sounds like Platinum Games did talk quite a bit to VGC about it, simply saying, and this is a quote from them talking about Microsoft. They said, "Watching fans getting angry at Microsoft over the cancellation wasn't easy for us to watch, because the reality is when any game in development can't get released, it's because both sides failed." And yes, yeah, I could see that. Apparently, there were issues between Microsoft and Platinum. I think it had a lot to do with the vision that Platinum had and the vision that Microsoft had. Microsoft wanted to be multiplayer because that's kind of what they focus on, are multiplayer style games, not necessarily single-player heavy games like Sony, for example, or Nintendo. Microsoft is more or less into working towards live service stuff for pretty much all of their games. They like the multiplayer aspect, and it sounds like what they had designed at Platinum just wasn't gonna work with what Microsoft wanted. We saw some of the gameplay, and it was bad. It was like 20 frames per second, 15 frames per second. It was struggling badly, and while the Xbox One X might have made that work, the original Xbox One wasn't cutting it. So yeah, it doesn't look like it was really just Microsoft's fault. Now, Microsoft canned the whole thing because it just didn't look like it was gonna work out. It could have gone on for years, just trying to make it work even semi-well, and it didn't look like they were really interested in that in the first place. It was definitely a game that was gonna cater more to the Eastern audience than the Western audience, just based on what it was about and everything. But I still think with how popular something like Game of Thrones is right now, right? And I mean, it's a game about dragons and everything, so they could have maybe marketed it in that area and it still would have caught on in the West pretty well. One thing's for sure, though, it was a very interesting concept to a lot of us based on what was around it in Microsoft's camp right then. You know, we were talking about like shooters like Gears of War and Halo, and we had, of course, Forza racing games and everything. And then, oh, what's this? There's a game where the guy's wearing headphones and he's, you know, controlling a dragon and they're fighting and everything. That was actually a really cool idea. Now, VGC also went on saying alongside, this is actually alongside of the site, that there were no plans that they've heard about any type of revival for them. This is from Video Games Chronicle, that there's nothing they've heard of about it. So that's also an interesting little bit to see, that not necessarily any word about it, but we'll see. There's still a while to go, and we got to get through E3 first before we start saying that any of this stuff is unlikely. Next up, let's talk about State of Play and the possibility of Square Enix actually showing up there. This is kind of interesting because I didn't necessarily think Final Fantasy VII Remake or even something like the Avengers project would be there, but there are some odd things going on Twitter. This was actually tweeted out, as you're seeing here. This is from Shinji Hashimoto, who of course is executive producer on Final Fantasy VII Remake currently. That's kind of gone under the radar for a bit now, right? And this actually translates to, oh, you've come. And it has the PlayStation State of Play quoted. And this is getting people really thinking right now about the possibility of there being a presence from Square at this event. What would Square be doing at State of Play? Well, they could be the third-party game that people may have forgotten about, because it's been quite a while since we've seen Final Fantasy VII Remake. I mean, it's been years. So if they decide to show up there, where of course, as far as we know, it was a PlayStation timed exclusive, first on PlayStation and everything. So if they show up there and it's a Final Fantasy VII Remake, I don't think that would throw many people off. Maybe they want to show that it's back. They're showing it specifically to the crowd, right, that they would be working with, which is the PlayStation crowd, and then they save the Avengers project for E3 as their big thing. Look, the Avengers project, we just had Endgame. You know, you definitely want to pick this up. I actually am starting to think that that would at least make sense. Nothing's confirmed, but why is he quoting this tweet if they have no part in it? That's the interesting thing. So think about that a bit. Is this finally where we see Final Fantasy VII Remake back in action? Kingdom Hearts 3 is out. Next up's Final Fantasy VII Remake, right? In our last bit of news, check this out. We had the June cover for Game Informer revealed, and it is Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, and it looks amazing. Now, they are talking about having a bunch of information in there, so I'll grab the magazine and check it out. They'll also be putting up, I'm sure, articles on their website all about it, but I've been looking forward to Marvel Ultimate Alliance, this revival, since they revealed it at the Game Awards, because it looks awesome, and it makes sense, of course, with the Switch. We found out it's going to have online multiplayer and everything. This is looking really good. We just had, of course, Endgame, so now people are really excited to play as all these characters and everything. And the artwork for the Game Informer spread on the cover looks amazing. It looks so good. So I'll be picking this one up. They usually send it, of course, out to everyone's house if you're subscribed to the magazine. Otherwise, I'm sure you can just go into GameStop and they might just give it to you, or they might make you sign up. But either way, it's a really cool piece from what they show there, and I definitely want to get all the information I can about this, maybe even put it in a video ahead of its release, because it's looking really cool, and I'm looking forward to playing some couch co-op / online multiplayer with a bunch of people. And we're gonna finish up today with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. It's from Rocky D12, and they say, come on, THQ Nordic, give us Time Splitters for the Switch. Now, the reason I picked this comment is because we can never forget that THQ Nordic has the Time Splitters IP. We cannot forget. We need them to do something with it. We need another Time Splitters. And with how much they are really on board with the Switch, it seems recently, I wouldn't be shocked if whenever they are ready to do it, even if they get the old one, bring it up to like standard, you know, with dual analog sticks and everything, and have that all ready to go, better visuals, smooth it out. Yeah, I think it would be really cool to see that gyro aiming and everything, right? That would be really, really neat. And I do wonder if that's already in the works. Like, I do wonder if they've already thought about it. They're like, oh, we'll bring it up, you know, we'll make it so it's on everything, Xbox One, PlayStation 4, PC, Switch. We'll give the Switch gyro aiming. We'll give the PlayStation 4 Pro and the Xbox One X 4K, 60 frames across the board, online multiplayer. Don't let THQ Nordic forget. We need Time Splitters in some way. Even if it's not a brand new game for now, just get the old one, fix it up, and put it out. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, the like button really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether it is Platinum Games talking about Scalebound. Do you think Scalebound's gone for good, or do you believe the rumors that it could be making a revival on the Switch? It really does sound crazy to hear that, right? But I guess you never know. And then, of course, Platinum Games kind of dividing the blame, saying, hey, it was everyone's fault. It just wasn't gonna work with everyone's vision kind of clashing. And then what do you think about the chances of Final Fantasy VII Remake at the State of Play event, especially now with Shinji Hashimoto talking about it and, well, at this point, quoting tweets and saying cryptic messages about it? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.